Hi, I'm Jim Culp. I'm a docent here at LeMay, America's Car Museum in Tacoma, Washington. And on Tuesday, November 7th at 11:30, I'm going to be talking about the Ford V8 and Henry Ford's development of the V8 engine and how that all came together in 1932. This was a Ford V8 from 1932. A great American car and a piece of history that really defined the automotive industry in the 30s. In the early 30s, Henry Ford realized his Model A with its little four-cylinder engine was being outsold by companies like Chevrolet with their new six-cylinder, or even this Durant with a six-cylinder. So he decided he had to do something. Henry Ford had built a six-cylinder engine in 1909, but he never liked it. He never could figure out how to get it balanced the way he wanted it to be balanced. So Henry really didn't like six-cylinder engines. When his staff of engineers came up with a prototype of a six-cylinder engine, he promptly tossed it in the scrap heap, much to their dismay. So that's where things stood in the early 30s. Then on one snowy day in 1932, Henry Ford and his wife Clara seemed to make a spontaneous decision to take a drive from Dearborn, Michigan to their winter home in Fort Myers, Florida. They climbed in a Ford Model A and took off, followed by Henry's assistant, Frank Campbell. When they got to Florida, 1,300 miles away, no freeway, two-lane roads, most of them paved, no five-star resorts to stay in. But when they got to their home in Fort Myers, they discovered a welcoming committee of Henry's employees. He invited some folks to bring a reporter in from Miami so he could talk about his great adventure. So Henry Ford stood on the running board of his Model A and talked about the trip down, the wonderful adventures you could have in Florida. He was also invested in Florida real estate at the time. And the state of American business. At that point, he concluded the interview and sent the reporter on his way. Then he turned to his assistants and said, "Now, you want to see the real reason for my trip?" And opened the hood of the Model A to reveal a V8 engine like this one. Henry Ford had secretly developed a V8 engine in Dearborn and wanted to test drive it, so he drove it to Florida. I'm not sure how his wife Clara went along with that, but somehow she did. They test drove all the way to Florida. He'd had his assistant, Frank Campbell, follow him in another Model A in case the V8 broke down. He didn't want to reveal it at any local garage, so he was planning to tow it from wherever it failed. But it didn't. It succeeded, went all the way to Florida. And Henry kept it a secret for another couple of months, and in May he unveiled his new V8 engine. This engine is pretty interesting because it was the first V8 in a really affordable car. A car like this convertible would cost $495, but that wasn't the cheapest Ford V8. You could actually get one a little cheaper. The four-door sedan would cost almost $600, but it was quite affordable for a V8 car. It was the first affordable V8 made in America. So that was Henry's great invention of the 1930s. The car has another Florida connection in that it was built in Thomas Edison's laboratory, which had been moved from Fort Myers, Florida to Dearborn, Michigan, put in Henry Ford's museum at Greenfield Village. He'd secretly developed the new V8 in the museum to keep it away from prying eyes in his factories. And that's the story of how the V8 started out. Here's another example of a 32 Ford V8. This one's another reason that 32 is such an iconic car. This is a great American hot rod. Now this one's a delivery van. The classic 32 Ford hot rod is the coupe, famously called the Deuce Coupe. Little Deuce Coupe, the Beach Boys song from 1963. And also, it's the star of the George Lucas coming-of-age film, American Graffiti. That canary yellow car that was featured in most of the movie is a 32 Ford Deuce Coupe. 32 Ford became the great American hot rod right after World War II. It was easily available. The engines could be souped up and additional carburation added, superchargers added to give you more horsepower. You can plug almost any engine and transmission in these things. And the 32 is the classic American hot rod from the end of World War II on into the 60s. And in fact, if you really like a 32 Ford, you can buy brand new chassis and bodies made in either fiberglass or aluminum and build your own 32 Deuce Coupe today.